party?
Well, since we're starting the show with that, my daughter's birthday
Yep.
party was pretty nice. She got a new pair of roller skates because she's at that age where that's like one of the best gifts you could possibly get.
Skates or blades?
Skates. She wanted old school four-wheel
She wanted
skates.
70s clay wheel skates.
Right. Yeah, exactly. She wants to go down to the boardwalk and kind of do like some roller skate aerobics and stuff.
And she's 6?
Now she is.
Now she is.
You got to
Is
have
she a
goals.
genius? Is she a genius?
I'm partial. I'm partial. She's very
Okay.
creative. I think all
Okay.
my kids are. I think everyone thinks their
She,
kids are geniuses. Well,
yeah.
maybe there's that person that's like, not mine,
My parents never thought that.
which drove you to succeed.
It drove me to prove them wrong.
Right, I'll show
You
you.
know, like I got a review, and this is a good way to start uh, Galactic Edge, Galaxy's Outlaws. What are we called?
We're
Star
actually
Wars, not Star Wars.
Star Wars, not Star Wars is the safe bet. Our
Yes.
our LLC is Galaxy's Edge. So
See, this is a good way to start because people know we are human beings who we don't just come on and schlep our stuff and talk about what ginormous stars we are and how everybody loves us. Just a bunch of lies.
mhm,
We talk about your daughter's roller skating ambitions. I hope she ends up in roller derby, like down in Tillicum.
right.
Ooh,
Mhm.
did you see me pull that reference out?
That was good. That's a nice. That is a nice reference. Have you been there?
Yeah. Tillicum was off limits to us in the military
Okay.
because there were just so many bad things that went on there, and shyster car dealers and
Mhm.
clubs we weren't supposed to be going in. And no, I don't hope your daughter ends up in Tillicum.
Right.
But like they basically, like, you could never tell, but there were times as a soldier when you weren't allowed to go to Tillicum.
Right.
And so you never do. And so, like, I don't think I went there for like 3 years in the Army. And then, like, my 4th year, I was like, whatever, I'm going to go to Tillicum. And because there was a great rib place there called the Rib Cage. This is
Mhm.
outside what people now call Joint Base Lewis McChord, but it used to be called Fort Lewis
Right. It was
back
one or
in,
two things. You were either on
yeah,
McCord or you're on Fort Lewis.
right. Back when I was in the Indian Cavalry Scouts day. No.
Hmm.
So that was like 1990, 90s, early 90s. So it
Hmm.
was like that. And Tillicum was the place. But, like, if you were going to be a roller derby queen from anywhere, you'd probably be from Tillicum.
Yeah, there's a good chance. There's a good chance of that. It's
Yeah,
well, and it's just like this little strip that's like the
right.
only thing that's not a military base.
Right.
It's,
It's literally the what they used to call, like, on highways, the frontage road,
uh-huh.
that someone just put up a bunch of chained fence lots and car dealerships and places to, like, get tattoos and sell your military gear that you probably shouldn't be selling, so that you
Uh-huh.
can so that you can go drink. So it
Right.
was it was just a terrible place.
It's where all the
But
camp.
every place in Washington is pretty cool, compared to, like, I lived in New York, so
Mhm.
I think of Washington State very fondly. Like, New York, I hated. It was just a terrible place.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
And you talking about the city or the whole state?
the city.
While we're
The
while
state
we're
was the state
offending
was
people.
nice. Like,
Mhm.
one time I drove around the state a little bit, and then one time I went to New Jersey, and I was also stationed in New Jersey for a little while too.
Mhm.
So I liked it. But it's hard for me because I'm from Southern California. So, like,
Right.
not to brag or anything, like, but I'm literally from the greatest place on earth.
I mean, weather-wise, it's pretty nice, right?
Every wise.
I'm sure there's something
I mean, liberal
political.
Democrats, if we could get
Right,
rid of
yeah.
them, it would be a paradise.
Yeah, there's got to be something. No, there are times where my wife and I will kind of look at the rain and like our
Yeah.
little like solar lights that you put on the fence, they wink out like 20 minutes after they come on. And like, yeah, it'd be nice to have some sun.
No, I remember my last year, I was kind of toying with the idea of maybe staying in Washington, because I was doing some stuff up there and flying and stuff like that, and I was even toying with the idea of maybe staying in the military. But I remember it was the 4th of July, and it rained on me
Hmm.
at the parade field at Fort Lewis, and I was like, I am finished with this state, because literally it rains on you on the 4th. But, like, for the 1 month of summer that Washington gets, it's great. It's
Yeah.
paradise. And that's when all the Californians come up there and they're like, hey, it's pretty nice up here. You're
Yeah.
like,
And
yeah,
right. So then they
this
move and
this
then
month it's nice.
yeah. So they move and then become horribly depressed.
Yeah.
And they've
Yeah.
cashed
How do you
out.
like pills?
Yeah, right. Because you're gonna need them. There's a
Yeah,
reason
you're
why
gonna need some
grunge.
antidepressant pills.
Right?
Yeah,
Yeah, there's a reason why
exactly.
grunge was a thing.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's talk about Galactic Edge,
Yeah. Well, Galaxy's Edge.
Galaxy's Edge, Galactic Outlaws.
Let's talk about it. So, our readers at the point of this podcast, they're going to be getting your chapter pretty soon.
Right.
They
Yes.
just got my most recent chapter,
Yeah.
and we are
What
really
happened in
about. Oh, you want to
what
review
happened in
it?
that chapter?
Well, spoiler alert for you listeners, but so in this chapter, we explored a little bit more that officer,
Right.
Lieutenant Patel, and in her situation, she finds out, non-surprisingly, that Captain Keel was perhaps using her a bit. Um, and so then she tries to find out a way to hold him accountable. So Keel goes and jumps through hyperspace. We get to meet the princess. She comes out of the hold, and so does the young general that's with her. And they finish their short jump to the system they're going to, and find themselves facing down with space pirates flying
Ooh,
old
I like
prey
that.
hunter starfighters and trying to take out the indelible six. So
That's nice.
we've got a nice space battle, which I know was requested by some of our subscribers, and I
Yeah.
did indeed. I reread the old X-wing Rogue Squadron novels just so I can get that right feel
Really?
again. Yeah,
Yeah,
the
that's
Michael
weird because
Stackpole.
I was going to go in on my next question. How did you how did you frame these space battles? I am not a big fan of the Expanse series. I read the first few books. I was intrigued,
Mm-hmm.
but it's super preachy and super sermony and super stupid.
Oh yeah.
As you go on, it gets just more and more boring after, and uses more words. So that's my endorsement. But I initially liked their space battles.
Right.
So, but yeah, but they did hard SF really well for a
Mm-hmm.
space battle.
Yeah.
But again, Star Wars battles are much more World War II dogfights,
Yeah, and that's
that
definitely what
kind
we
of
have
stuff.
here. So we're definitely in
Yeah.
this kind of a space battle, talking about maneuvering and going to corkscrew turns and shifting your speed in space and things like that, in an attempt to
Yikes.
have that nice Star Wars feel and the
Yeah.
satisfying explosions when you blow up an enemy starfighter.
What was your favorite Han Solo maneuver?
It's not even like a space maneuver, but in The Empire Strikes
Right.
Back, when
Yes.
they're flying
Which
and
is
he
the
goes,
greatest flying. It is the
yeah,
greatest flying.
right. And he's like, there, that looks good. And
Yeah.
they just do
Yeah.
that beautiful loop and then just fly right
Okay.
down into. I love that one.
Right. Yeah. My two are when the Millennium Falcon goes horizontal
Hmm.
and threads the needle of two asteroids smashing
Yeah,
together.
that's a great one.
I like that's a great one. And then the TIE
Mhm.
fighters kind of like hit it. A few make it through and then one hits it.
Yeah, right.
Um, that's a really great one. I would also say when he attacks the Star Destroyer, but
Hmm.
it's really just to put it onto the side of the hull and then drift away with the trash.
Hmm.
That's a really, really great maneuver. And having said that, Lando Calrissian actually turns out to be a pretty good pilot in Jedi.
Yeah, he does turn out to be pretty good. Now his co-pilot, they have really fast reflexes, the Solistans, but um, that's actually one of my favorite parts is when they're flying through the superstructure of the second Death Star, and they
Oh
knock
yeah.
off the antenna dish, and the whole ship kind of lurches. It's like that was too close. But I
Yeah.
just like that's just those little additions that make
Yeah.
things come to life.
Yeah. And I like that they didn't put the radar dish back on
Mhm.
for Force Awakens.
Mhm.
That like there's it's just been gone for 20 years.
So those things are expensive. They're
I know,
expensive.
exactly. It was kind of it was a very 70s starship design aspect. I think if they were building those ships now, they wouldn't necessarily put the radar dish on. But
Right.
you could see, like in 1970, when they went to the modelers and they were like, take some model kits and build us. And as I understand, initially the Millennium Falcon was supposed to be sort of a torpedo,
Mhm.
and then they didn't like it, so they made the flat hamburger,
Yeah.
and that turns out to be the most iconic ship of all time.
Right. Yeah. The
But when
hamburger and they
you
put the olive on the side.
yeah, yeah, but when you go back and look at it, that radar dish is fairly wonky.
Mhm. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean,
So
it makes sense back when people had to have gigantic satellite dishes in their backyard if they wanted satellite television. You know, those
exactly.
huge white metal structures.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny too because the first TIE fighter encounter with the Millennium Falcon is it's very much like the Millennium Falcon is like this sort of very slow moving freighter, which would be true.
Mhm.
And the TIE fighters are all over it, you
Right.
know. And that's how we get the classic. Like when I was a kid, that Christmas, as fast as Japan could crank it out,
Mhm.
you got all these handheld video games where you were in the turret.
Uh-huh.
If I remember correctly, and then there was the handheld game where you bombed the Death Star.
Mhm.
But it seems like and they had no idea about marketing or gaming at the time, but like the turret battle, let's call that scene the turret battle,
Mhm.
is just so made for like, and we're gonna pump out some little games for these bastards, because it's so like that was video gaming when I was a kid in the 70s. Yes, there was Pong, but like a lot of people who don't know, they'd say like, I need asteroids. No, I'm talking before asteroids. Like you literally go into these really sleazy old arcades that were just like Wild West fun centers. It was really just a shooting gallery. That's really what
Mhm.
most arcades were, like late 70s. And I always remember there would be this sort of World War II game, and they would just play live footage of Zeros attacking a battleship.
Uh-huh.
And you'd have this light gun, and you were shooting. And I remember thinking that was pretty cool. But that Lucas just evolved that for that scene. And so yeah, in that scene, the Millennium Falcon is much slower, more ponderous, and the TIE fighters are all over it, as opposed to Empire and Jedi. So where did you land?
Yeah, so I landed that they definitely are using the money that they make on their ship. So its shields are a little beat up from repeated blasts from that tank while they're doing the prisoner transfer. So that causes them some problems, but they're fast and they're able to hold up with these. Admittedly, pirates don't have like the best tech in the world, so they're flying starfighters, but they're old starfighters.
Right. Yeah.
So they're able to hang and outrun those if they want to. But Captain Keel is really not the type of guy that wants to outrun. He feels insulted that they would kind of even attack him.
And how did you have sort of, for the starfighters, did you have like a concept in mind? Like what do they like? If you say starfighter, I don't know why that just screams Buck Rogers, the early 80s show.
Yeah, so it's definitely, I describe it as a fixed wing starship that's capable of space and atmospheric travel.
Okay.
Um, so I kind of had like the old Z95 Headhunter, which wasn't in the movies, but people that kind of went into the expanded universe will have that in mind. But it's basically like an X-wing with two wings instead of four. But
Okay.
definitely one that Buck Rogers single engine kind of rocket engine on the back. But
Well,
yeah,
don't isn't that the fighter in Rogue Squadron?
well, the Rogue Squadron has that one that has a, yeah, it has that like the what is it, the U wing? That's
Right.
a little bit different, but not quite that. I'd say
Okay.
more of like a snub fighter that has the kind of sleek nose and then just one fixed wing. Really, just looks like an evolution of a modern jet.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I buy that. I think what Lucas always did that was brilliant was he named the Rebel Alliance's fighters after letters.
Yes.
X, Wing, Y, and so it was really easy to. I'm toying with the idea of making when the Empire sort of develops.
Hmm.
I've been looking at sort of concept TIE fighters that never made it into the movie,
Right.
and I've actually found one that's three solar panels. Remember,
Oh, cool.
that's the other funny
I remember
thing.
that.
Is,
Uh huh.
yeah, is that they were called solar panels
Hmm.
because solar was pretty important back in the day.
Sure.
Um, so yeah, so it looks like the TIE Interceptor. It was never used in the movie, but it has three solar panels,
Hmm.
and it looks really wicked. And so I was thinking about calling the Empire's fighters Tri Fighters because it
Yeah.
has three solar panels.
Yeah. I think
See, and
that's
there
really
we,
good.
yeah, yeah, there we surf close
Hmm.
to Star Wars,
Well, and
waiting
in
for our cease and desist order.
well, in Legionnaire, I've already gotten as close to that too, because I called
Yeah,
the support fighter. They're called tri
yeah,
bombers, and
yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah.
and the idea just kind of being whatever their shape has, kind of like a three bubble shape, one for the pilot, and then two bubble's not right, more of like a tube, like a payload type
Yeah.
thing, and then two
I
for the
kind of like,
payloads.
there's a part of me that's kind of hoping we will get a cease and desist order at some point. Like, I kind of, and like, there's a weird kind of crazy Irish part to me that like
Uh-huh.
wants to go to court. You
Well,
know, just wants to get in the room with Disney's lawyers and just like kind of make a case and be like, well, like, and just talk about our book a whole bunch publicly.
it's just like it's the most awkward job interview ever.
I know, yeah, yeah. You would never hire me to write this, so I figured the only way to do it was for you to sue me.
Mhm. Right. Nice.
I don't know, and that's the funny thing about that is like that idea right there.
Hmm.
You could literally do a Hollywood script based on that.
That's
And like since we both have a love of old movies, you could totally do it as sort of like It's a Wonderful Life, kind of like, or like just like one of the older movies where, it turns out like, and Disney's lawyers are mean and they're going to sue you and everything like that. And you're in there and you're passionately, and you have this big speech, this Jimmy Stewart speech, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington at the end, where you
right.
talk about your love of Star Wars, and then up stands George Lucas, and then
Right.
you're just given the keys to the kingdom, and like I could totally see that being made right now. That would be a great movie.
Right. Yeah. And that would just have to be the alternate telling before he cashes out, right?
Yeah. No, no, no. Like, yeah, I mean, no, like in the Hollywood sense,
Right.
they would still want to make it seem like he had some pull, and he'd be like, I approve of you, and he would call you something like young Padawan, or no, the final thing is he would say your training is complete. Oh,
Yeah. See, that's a good ending, right? And there's a
yeah.
secret clause that lets him get out of his deal, and then all of a sudden you own the franchise. And
Yeah, but there would be these other stories too, like your wife's gonna leave you and you miss your kid's birthday because of the court trial, and
Mhm.
you have to give your kid this speech about how much you believe in Star Wars and blah blah blah, and like, and winning this trial means everything, and then your wife is there and she sees, and she believes in you and all this, just total Hollywood dreck.
Right.
Totally not happening, because like the reality is probably both of us would be sued into oblivion.
Like at the first letter, we'd be like, okay, we need to make some changes.
But there's a part of me that wants to take it to that level, because maybe I live in Hollywood, maybe that kind of stuff, maybe I would get their attention. But I do know writers who approach me and they talk about this project, and they will tell you straight up, like, my goal, and I guess I know a lot of right-wing writers
Hmm.
who kind of have to stay under the radar, but they'll say my goal is to write for Star Wars someday, but
Hmm.
I know they'll never hire me until they fall flat on their face.
Right.
And then, like, it's like I want to say, like, like, there are reasonable goals in life, but I never rain on anybody's dreams or anything. Like, I once met a
Sure.
guy who told me, and he was a security guard, and I worked at a Borders bookstore, and he was about like 350 pounds, and he was maybe slow,
Hmm.
and he told me that one day he was going to be Frank Sinatra, like, straight up. And he would
Hmm.
sit in his car in the parking lot and sing all of Frank Sinatra's songs, and he wasn't even close. But not for 1 minute did I ever say, this is an impossible dream, it's not going to happen. I just said, well, that's really great, and I just do that with everybody. No matter how weird your dream is, I will probably not rain on it. So I'm the worst person ever for career advice, which is unusual, because a lot of people come to me for career advice.
We should. So now everyone knows the secret, right? That brilliant
Yeah,
idea that Nick was like, oh,
I'm
it's
the
fun.
worst person in the world. I'll never shoot down any. I'll get people like, and thankfully now that I voted for Trump, a lot of people, and I've been vocal about it, a
Oh, that's
lot
out there.
less people have been asking me to blurb them.
Right. That's out there.
And that
Well,
was half the reason I did it. That was half the, I said, if I do this thing that everybody hates, then they'll stop asking me to read their books. But like, the hard part is I never say anything bad about it. I'm like, well, this is great. There have been a few people where I just didn't finish the book, and I hope they went away, and they just went away because it was so bad. And to be honest, there are some people that I've said, well, it's really good, but these are things you need to work on. And then there are some people like you that I read it, and it was just like there was no criticism. It's great.
Yeah,
But I would
it's
say a lot of people, like I've learned, like they actually don't want the criticism. They just want you to tell them they're a diamond in the rough. Like
right.
blurbs. Like I write blurbs for people, and they always, oh, can you write my blurb? Because if you ever need a blurb, I'm a master blurb writer.
The
And
blurbist.
yeah, I'm a blurbist, and I'll give them 4 solid gold sentences, and they'll go right out and use another blurb. They'll send me they'll send me their blurb, and like it'll be terrible. It'll just be over expository and all these kinds of things. And then I'll give them back like a ninja blurb, just trimmed down to the bare minimum to get the people, and they can't let go of all the beautiful details they want to.
Right.
Have you ever read like bad blurbs on Amazon? There should
Oh
be
yeah.
like a website, the bad blurb. I've seen people post the first chapter in the description section.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I've seen that too.
Yeah.
Real quick, Keystroke Medium is
Yes.
is talking to us, and
Okay.
they
They're
agree.
like, hey,
Yeah,
we asked you for career advice.
yeah. Hey, what are you doing? But I'm assuming it's Josh. Josh is saying
Yeah.
that he couldn't get through the Expanse book 4,
Yeah,
and
it was bad.
then Josh at Keystroke Medium, he's a subscriber to Galaxy's Edge, and
Yes.
he absolutely adores mixing. Not even mixing metaphors, like mixing entire worlds, probably just to see if anyone will lose it. So he says that my favorite Star Wars battle is when the Enterprise fought the Galactica.
I love that one.
Yeah, that was really good.
Like if you ever watched Mystery Science Theater 3000 did the most, not the most meta, but there was this one, and are you a Mystery Science Theater 3000?
Oh yeah. I have my shirt from Kickstarter.
Yeah. Okay. So my favorite movie of all time is what? Their favorite episode of what? You probably know. You can guess which one is my favorite.
Of all the episodes that they did?
Yeah. Yeah. It's easy. Think of me, who I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm having trouble because like there's
the Raul Julia one is my favorite.
Okay.
Yeah. Because
All
Raul
right.
Julia, and because when people think of me as Raul Julia in my head. So
yeah, I don't know that I would have made that connection. You know what I was going to say? Did you ever see the one with Joe Don Baker called Mitchell?
I feel that I have. I used to drink a lot when I would watch it.
so
things are
Mitchell
fuzzy.
He was doing his own Chuck Bronson hard cop, and it was like when he was most bloated. It was just awful.
It's great. It's so like I want to watch it now, but I've tried to reform my life and be a kinder person. And when I watch those, all the zingers come back out, and I start zinging people in real life. I'm like, oh, this probably isn't good. But the Raul Julia scene, the greatest part of that one is the fart scene. When they just have the guy he's just walking around, they just start making fart noises.
Right. Yeah.
I couldn't breathe. I was like literally like, I can't breathe. This is so great. But anyways, there is this one where they do this sort of Star Wars knockoff with a guy who probably was the runner-up to getting cast in 1981's Flash Gordon. And they use Cylon battle stars.
Really?
As sort of the B-roll footage.
And
or not Cylon battle stars, base stars. And you're just watching it, and suddenly it's Battlestar Galactica, and you're like, whoa, meta.
Just hoping no one will notice, right?
Yeah, it's so bad. And the funny thing is, the love interest in that movie is older than the male love interest, the hero.
Well, that's so, just like, being progressive.
No, but she's supposed to be young and nubile, and everybody's like, praising her sort of like maidenly virtues, and she's literally sort of like this Vegas cocktail waitress.
So let's go over that, because you're inside Hollywood, and we'll get back to Galaxy's Edge. Every once in a while, we'll watch a movie like on Netflix or something like that, like a family movie, medium-sized budget. And and it will be obviously a story about a girl in her 20s or something like that, who comes back home to her farm on Kentucky, and mom and dad have died tragically, and does she choose her life in LA, or does she choose a simple life? And it always seems like they cast these women that are in their like late 30s to early 40s. Not that I mind, but you can tell, like they have like, the smile lines, and they have like a little bit of neck wrinkle, and that's not a problem, but they're clearly not the age that they're cast to play. And the only thing I can think of is that this is like the producer's wife,
Yeah.
and she's finally getting her leading role.
Just kidding.
Is that how it works?
I think that it is literally. I mean, like it's a very. I've heard a lot of. This is a family show, so we can't talk about half the stuff that I've heard, but it is just nepotistic on every level.
Mm-hmm.
And there's always somebody who wants something, or it's just it's just like it's just weird. I think it's like that in a lot of industries. The video game industry that I'm working in now, it's just basically how many friends can I give jobs to? It just happens that most of the people in the video game industry are really talented, but in
Right.
the movie industry that's not the case, because there's a lot of, I mean, I live in a town full of very beautiful women.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's very hard to be a woman in Hollywood, in their defense,
Sure.
because your career is pretty much up at 21 years old. If you want to have a career in Hollywood as a woman, you probably need to start at like 9, 10, 11, 12, 14. Don't go to high school, don't go to college. I'm not kidding. Like, that's funny, but I'm not even kidding.
That's
Because
scary.
by the time you graduate college and then get talked into getting a master's,
Mm-hmm.
you are literally over the hill for Hollywood. Yes, you are a fine actress.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you've played Lady Macbeth, but you're not getting hired for anything other than the sister on, the latest Ben Stiller comedy or whatever. Like, you can have this super marginal career of really doing nothing with arc.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, so like a lot of those, I think a lot of them are sort of like producers saying, I want to cast my girlfriend, and the term girlfriend is fairly, it's, I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, Hollywood is a terrible place. It just really is. It's every time I find a new bottom, I'm always surprised. I'm like, oh, I thought I knew the bottom last week, and then here's a new bottom.
Right.
So it's just not, and it's weird, because if you've read my book Fight the Rooster,
Mm-hmm.
you
It's a
know
great
how
book.
much. Yeah, I mean, thank you. Yeah, I am great. um, but you know how much I was saying, yeah, the book is great, not me. But you know how much I love Hollywood, and like I am that old timey Orson Welles, John Ford,
Mm-hmm.
Judy
Sure.
Garland, Mickey Rooney putting on a show. I still believe in stuff, that I still believe in the Spielberg lighting,
Right.
like
Yeah.
that still gets me. And then it's just not that anymore. It's just and now with politics pretty much taking over,
Mm-hmm.
it's only going to get worse. Like okay, so last night there's this phenomenal thing that happened on the internet. The new Alien movie is coming out, and
Mm-hmm.
they put out a prequel trailer, and I watched it. I was like, cool. And
Yeah.
it looks really good, until you're sitting there as like a right-wing nut job like me, and you're like, okay, this is a story about some colonists going out to LV-246,
Mm-hmm.
which is where the aliens end up being, in the ship and everything like that.
Right.
And but the trailer really telegraphs this gay couple,
Uh-huh.
and they're colonists. And I'm like, this is the stupidest thing in the world. I know that Hollywood really wants to show you that gay people are just like us,
Mm-hmm.
and they can have normal relationships and all this kind of stuff. But like, you're shoehorning it into this colony movie, and kind of like the problem with having a gay couple in a and shoot down anything you think in this that I'm doing wrong here.
Okay.
But like, there's zero population gain. In fact, they're negative population gain, because they pull from your, like, if you're trying to establish a colony, yeah, you can do all this tech and all that kind of stuff, but like, if anybody's ever read anything about the colonization of America or any place, the thing that you colonize by is by making babies, just
Right.
making tons of them, so that you can get a foothold, because you're going to have all this death and disease, and you're going to have food shortages, and stuff's going to happen, and you're way out there.
Mm-hmm.
So you just, at the end of the day, you need human numbers. You need like what evolution teaches you, and I'm not even an evolutionist, but you need like the biological imperative. So like, this trailer goes, just like totally telegraphs this gay couple on this like, just threadbare colony mission. I'm like, that's stupid, because no colony mission would allow a gay couple there, you know, unless they're like, hey, you're going to breed with the females because we need numbers. So that's
Right.
just kind of where Hollywood has gone. It's just flushed the truth of any kind of situation to put out this agenda. So filmmaking and storytelling is going to get much crappier, because whenever you do something like creatively, and like what we're doing, and with Galactic Outlaw, or like when you go back to the movies of Spielberg and stuff like that,
Hmm.
or even Stephen King movies or whatever, like all the old great movies, Taxi Driver, anything with Cary Grant, stuff like that. There was always this touchstone of truth and reality. Like what makes A Wonderful Life such a great movie is that it's really actually quite an unflinching look at wanting to kill yourself.
Hmm. Right.
You
Yeah.
know,
At the end of the day,
yeah,
right.
yeah, and not, it's about you're going to kill yourself, and the world would be a much worse place if you
Hmm.
did, which is the truth. The world, if you killed yourself, the world would be a much worse place. So, they don't do that anymore. Now they're really, because Hollywood has these sacred cows,
Hmm.
they're desperate to shoehorn those into the agenda at the expense of story. And you start making these critical errors, like, oh, we're going to have like 20 colonists and two of them are gay. Okay, so those two aren't going to produce any life forms. And
Hmm.
you could get around it and say, oh, they'll have test tube babies and blah blah blah. And it's like, well, fine, like in a perfect world, but like, you know, occasionally humans just have to like have sex and make babies to
Right.
hold on. I mean, that's human civilization, but you're going to just rewrite everything and make it completely different. So I say all that to wind up to say that Hollywood's a terrible place.
Right. Yeah. All that to say, Hollywood's a terrible place.
Hollywood's a terrible place. And it's just like, I mean, there's homeless living on every street,
Hmm.
but yet every person will hear will tell you like, oh, Trump's just ruined the economy, and we're fighting for everybody, but like in LA, there's this vast disparity.
Hmm.
You either are super wealthy or you're super poor,
Right.
and
It
it's
just goes the
that.
same way.
Yeah, and it's just like, but I thought you're for the common people. Like you're for the common people, but then it's a city of velvet ropes. It's a
Right.
city of like you don't belong here. I mean, it's a city of massive private security and limos and things like that.
Hmm.
Yet everything, like whenever you hear George Clooney or Jodie Foster open their mouths, or Bruce Springsteen, they're trying to affect that they're like somehow of the common man. And you're
Right.
like, yeah, not at all. Your security guards have MP5s and Glocks.
Right.
The common man carries a sawed-off baseball bat so he doesn't get hit on the way home. It's just that, and again, it's like you see horrible things here, and you're like, is that real, or is that a movie, or is that some actors doing stuff? And
Right.
so I say all that to say that Hollywood's a terrible place, and that Raul Julia fart scene in Mystery Science Theater 3000 is gold because there's another Mystery Science Theater 3000 that they use Cylon base stars and the B-roll footage to show the space attack, to go full circle back to what were the influences for your attack in your novel in space.
Right. Exactly. Which
See how I tied it all up
I'm
there.
glad that we got back there. I'm glad that we finally made it home. So then that's what happened. So then we leave with Captain Keel and Ravi and his crew
Right.
getting ready to
Yep.
figure out why they were attacked.
Yeah.
Um, and then your chapter, which we're not going to talk too much about because people haven't had a chance to read it, but your chapter we're kind of saying is going to be the end of kind of part one.
Right. It's and they haven't had a chance to read it because I haven't actually written it. I need to write it this weekend, and then edit it, and it goes through a very rigorous process. But it's basically going to be our bounty hunter, Tyrus Rex,
Hmm.
uh, finding and confronting Junga, the Gomari slave lord.
Right.
And then, of course, we'll have to mix in Prisma and her KRS 88 bot.
Hmm.
And then there will be, an appeal for her to go help her for the bounty hunter to help her obtain vengeance, which is her big motivation in life. And
Right.
that's what we're gonna package that as part one.
Hmm.
We're in the process of really making a great cover, and
Yeah.
then we're going to move into part two.
Right. And I'm excited for part two. Part one's going to be exciting too. I'm excited to see what happens next. And then in the meantime, we're going to keep releasing Legionnaire.
Right.
Chapter 3 will be out, I think, this weekend, so that we kind of can keep that pace that we set for ourselves. Just to say, I know we said we'd give you 2 chapters a month, but we kind of want to give you a chapter every week.
Yeah, exactly.
That's sort of what
And
we
I
feel
don't see
like.
anybody complaining. No one's like, hey, you know?
Yeah, not yet.
Yeah.
Not yet. After this show, they might start.
They're like, hey, I didn't realize your politics were so weird.
Right. Yeah. Yeah,
but that's okay. Yeah,
well, you end up finding the opposite. I think you end up finding a lot of people that say, "I'm so glad that I'm not, like
I
I'm
do.
told, the only person in the world that thinks like me."
Right. A year ago, I would have said, "Oh, everyone's gonna hate my guts." And what this year has taught me is I get lots of people. Um, I get a lot of left people who say, "Yeah, you're kind of crazy, but I
Mhm.
really do like your writing." Like, there's one guy who says, "Your politics are weird, but I like your writing," and he's cool, and we're cool. It's only like the only people that hate my politics are people who don't read my books but are kind enough to leave 1-star reviews,
Right.
just because it was that book was a political book. But most people, what I actually get is a lot of people who say, "Wow, it's nice not to have a lefty loony writer." I don't, I think that's because my career switched over to the sort of different side fan base, and there's a huge fan base out there of people who feel disaffected,
Mhm.
and they dig it, and that's refreshing. And then I like, I'll talk to them, and their politics are a lot of the times different. They're like, I'm just a straight up conservative, but they're libertarians, and libertarians are, they can be a little crazy. Some of their politics can be a little weird, but
Yeah.
like, that's okay. I'm cool. I get that you think I'm weird, and you're weird too. But I always hold to this philosophy. Like, if you and I got together, I don't go to bars and drink, but if
Right.
you and I got together and we had a donut and coffee, we would have probably a pretty good time.
I'm sure we would.
Um, yeah, and I make the case that people don't hate each other; they hate each other's ideas. The
Mhm.
problem now on Facebook, and I think like it's gotten weird on Facebook. Everybody's like, the few people that are remaining are shooting at each other left and right.
It's crazy.
And I happen to know a lot of people who have just faded. They're like, I can't take it, I'm out.
Right.
And yeah, so like, I would say that this election has probably hurt Facebook more than they're willing to uh, acknowledge.
Mhm.
But it's that left side that's very big about unfriending and not wanting to hear any sort of ideas that are outside their comfort zone. But I've actually found that most libertarians and conservatives, and again, I'm going to be fair, there are people who I know who are true leftists, and
Mhm.
I even know a full-on communist.
Uh-huh.
And I actually know two full-on communists, and they're actually very generous and they're listening and very kind. It's just,
They better be.
yeah, they have to be. But then there's just this other crowd that looks at politics as sort of a football team, and their
Right.
side lost and they're really pissed. And it's like, it's not really a football team, it's our nation. And then if you say anything that they disagree with, they call you an idiot and a monster, and you're like, okay, but I don't call you an idiot and a monster
Right. Yeah.
to your to your
Well,
face.
yeah, and as you've seen, we have a large subscriber base, and some
Sure.
of our subscribers are conservative and some are liberal. But the
Yeah.
nice thing about our subscribers that I've seen, as we've been friends with them on Facebook, is these are people that are willing to engage. They're
Yeah.
willing, they believe what they believe, but they're not so insecure in their
Yeah.
beliefs that an opposing view just shuts them down and puts them into a rage.
Because they're real science fiction people, because that's how science fiction, like, literally, you would have Heinlein, who is, the epitome of right wing science fiction,
Hmm.
and you would have Asimov, who's the epitome of left wing science fiction, in the same conventions together, friends talking together, and occasionally poking at each other in their novels.
Right.
But they didn't just murder each other, and now it sort of feels like that a lot. I wish no ill on anybody, and I wouldn't want to hurt anybody over politics or anything like that, but sometimes you definitely get those feelings from other people that they're just, they are just nuts, to that point that they view you as some sort of war criminal. So I think, I think the science fiction fans that we have, and I know some of them actually in real life,
Yeah.
they're just like people who are looking for a good story. They're probably, most of the ones that I've met are actually super free, independent thinkers.
Hmm.
Um, I'm probably more of a party line person, so I really respect the people that can sort of like take from here and here and here, and like kind of develop a political ideology or a thought process that works for them, that they're willing to test in the free market of ideas.
Hmm.
Um, I might not necessarily believe anybody, including like myself on either side, who just is blindly adherent. Like, my big thing is the pursuit of the truth.
Hmm.
I wouldn't blindly adhere to what I think or believe. I actually am just looking for the truth. And
Hmm.
if someone disproves it, then I'll probably switch over to that thing. So
Yeah.
I kind of feel like I have more in common with the people that read us, because I kind of feel like we're different, but we're both kind of actually interested in the truth as opposed to like pom pom stuff.
Yeah, totally. Pom pom stuff doesn't appeal us.
Right.
Um,
I mean,
Commenting.
Unless Nicole's holding the pom poms, that appeals to me.
Was she a cheerleader? She
Nicole,
seems like she would have been.
she was a cheerleader, yeah,
Okay.
and we kept the outfit.
Virtual high five. My wife was a cheerleader too.
Yeah, exactly. Never let go of that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Just remind them.
Remember,
And,
you were a cheerleader once.
and you still could be. All you have to do is choose to do it. So that's all.
Yes.
So that's going to be the end of part one. And
Okay.
I think, do you want to give? I've got a fun announcement here. You know, our special access and partner subscribers, we mentioned that we'd be doing quarterly giveaways and loyalty bonuses and things like that. So we're coming up on the first quarter of 2017. And you remember last time around, I believe you gave everybody a copy of, was it The End of the World as We Knew It? And I gave everybody a copy of Till Death.
Right.
This time, one of our friends, a really solid science fiction writer named Rob Cruzy. I think
Cool.
Robert Cruzy is actually his marketing name. Robert
We just call him
Cruzy.
Rob.
We call him
Yes.
Rob, but it's Robert
He's
Cruzy.
very funny. He's one of the funnier people you'll meet.
Oh, yes, he's hilarious. And his book, Starship Grifters, is just fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
But he's got a story set in that world. And so every special access subscriber and partner subscriber who's been with us through the first quarter of 2017, they're going to see that right at the beginning of March, free of charge.
Oh, you'll really dig that. And I know, for whatever it's worth, I know Hugh Howey blurbed that book and really liked it. So I think people will really dig it.
Yeah, no, it should be a lot of fun. So we're looking forward to that. And we've got that lined up. And then we've obviously got some big stuff planned for our 1-year anniversary, but more stuff coming for quarter two when we get through that. But I mean, I'm definitely appreciative of our subscribers who all seem to dig the concept art that we showed.
Yeah, that was beautiful.
Week. Yeah, and that's just rough sketches, man. Those guys,
yeah.
those artists that they'll be like, oh, this is just really rough. I don't know. And it just looks amazing.
It's all works for me. Usually when people like cover artists send me like sketches of like, well, here's how I think I'll do your cover. Mm-hmm. I'm usually like, hey, that's great. Let's just go with
that. I know. Yeah. Right.
I have no standards.
It's just, you don't have that artistic eye. Well, we've both worked with Mike Corley, who's just a fantastic cover artist. And he does that all the time. He'll be like, well, here's my rough sketch. And I'm like, this looks like the finished thing, man. I don't know what to say.
Let's roll with this.
It's like, oh no, I got to do this, this, and this. And so,
no, and he's very particular. Like he doesn't even let you, like he has to okay you sharing it.
Oh yeah.
And you're like, yeah, but it's like, no, I've seen him actually get mad at people for sharing the sketch.
Right. Yeah. I don't share it. I mean, I'll share it with a few people. If I'm trying to make up my mind between a couple concepts, I might message you option 1, option 2, but.
Right. And you have.
Yeah, I have. You've got access to the special files.
Yeah, it's I hope that this project really grows to the point where we can have some really cool Starship painters come in and do. I'm working with an artist through the video game company that I'm in. He's got mad skills, and he's actually going to be doing the cover for Galactic Outlaws for us based on some Mandalorian Super Trooper armor that we got. So I think that's going to be pretty slick when we get that. Right. And of course, all our subscribers will get that. And somehow, I think it's actually so cool that either Marion Buring, is she one of our?
Oh yeah, she's one of our subscribers. Hi,
cool,
Marion.
Cool. She's the master of getting skins for your Kindle.
Oh yeah.
She skins her Kindles. You know what that means?
Yeah. We need the little decal.
Yeah. She'll take books, my books, and she'll make cool skins and put them on her Kindle. So what would be really cool is once we have this cover done, is because I think it's just a file.
Yeah.
And so it would be really cool to just make that available to all the subscribers. The first cover as a Kindle skin.
That sounds cool to me. Now, when we do the cover, I've seen the Legionnaire. Is it the Mark II armor?
Yes.
Yeah, the cool old durable Legionnaire armor that the
Right.
bounty hunter has. Are we going to
Yes.
do that full Star Warsy thing, and so have all the other characters' profiles kind of in the background in a smaller picture?
We
Do we have
should.
any? Do we have anybody
Yeah.
that could make a good Captain Keel that wants to model for us?
Yeah, who, like, if you could, if we were making a movie of it right now, who would you cast?
I don't know because I write. We've talked about this on past shows, but I make sure to write my characters fairly undistinguished,
Yeah,
so that people can imagine themselves
right.
or their
I
favorite
think of,
actor.
for the main character, but maybe even not that. I actually think of actors when I write. So if you remember, I red herringed everybody in the first
Mhm.
chapter with, like, hey, here's Han Solo and that
Right.
Captain Hogus.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I made you think that Captain Hogus was going to be Han Solo,
Right.
and then he got a blaster to the chest.
Yeah.
And that guy is a guy I repeatedly use in books.
Hmm.
Um, and it's J.J. Abrams' best friend, who ends up in all his movies.
Who's that? Nathan Fillion?
No, he was in
That's Joss
Heroes.
Whedon.
He was on no, he was on in Star Trek. He was the commander of the base.
Okay.
Oh, he was Gold Squadron leader in Rogue One.
Oh, okay. I know him from Felicity.
Yeah, I used
That's what
him.
my wife watched.
I've used him in The End of the World as We Knew It as sort of the one of the main characters, persons that she has a relationship with,
Uh-huh.
and then I used him for Captain Hogus.
I know who you're talking about now. Well, I
And
knew
that
who you
guy,
were
like,
talking about, but now that I know that scene that you're talking about in The End of the World.
yeah,
Uh,
but he's J.J. Abrams' friend, like
right.
real life friend,
Hmm.
and he just puts him in everything,
Yeah.
like no rhyme, no reason, just like you're in. You're like, really?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah. So he's in Rogue One, and it's not bad.
And he doesn't even bother to, like, sort of change his character or his hair for any
Mhm.
role. He's just always that guy.
It's just him. Uh, I don't know who would be Captain Keel because I think of Harrison Ford, obviously.
Yes,
So let's just say
who's having
it's young Denzel
who's having
Washington.
he's no Denzel. Who is the new Harrison Ford? Some
Uh,
German kid, right?
yeah, probably.
Yeah,
I
because
kind
there
of
was
thought,
that post there was that shot today that was played,
yeah,
I mean, the publicity photo that went out this week.
right, with Woody Harrelson.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's funny because that's all your eyes get drawn to in that. You're like, hey, Woody
Hey, it's Woody
Harrelson.
Harrelson. Exactly.
The guy who plays Lando, like, that's a really good casting choice.
Oh
He
yeah,
wears
that was
gloves.
yeah, Glover.
The kid who's playing Harrison Ford looks a little nerdy, but when you do go back and look at initial Han Solo, like, Harrison Ford was always a good actor, but like
Mhm.
in Star Wars 1, he has a slight speech impediment, if you ever notice.
Yeah, right. I know what you mean.
And he's super thin, and,
He
like,
is.
yeah, so he wasn't Indiana Jones.
Right, not yet.
And yeah, and sometimes you have a tendency to think of him as Indiana Jones, but if you look at him in Star Wars, he's got some growth.
Right. And he's still in his 30s at that point, but he was working as a carpenter
Right.
when he
Yeah.
got the job. He was working. He hadn't had a chance to muscle up.
Yeah. Okay. So where I live in Orange County, California,
Hmm.
when he graduated, I think from the University of Kentucky or something like that, with his first wife, they drove out to Hollywood, and then they were going to drive up and down the coast,
Hmm.
and that was going to be their honeymoon, and then he was going to start pursuing work as an actor.
Hmm.
And they went right to Laguna Beach, which is right next to my house,
Hmm.
and they're like, hey, this is so great, and they just lived there. It was great. And he used to work at the Sears by my house.
Uh-huh.
And one night he was coming home on Laguna Canyon Road, and he got in a car accident. And if you ever look at his chin really close up, there's a scar there, and that's
Right.
where he got that scar.
I thought it
And
was a
then
bullwhip when he was a young boy,
no,
and there's
they
a
planted
lion.
that in Temple of Doom.
Last Crusade.
Yeah, Last
Yeah,
Crusade.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
right.
Yep.
Yeah. So no, he got that on Laguna Canyon Road.
Ah.
And when he had that plane crash, he was coming down to Orange County. His mom, I don't know if she's still alive. I would assume she was because he was down here, but maybe not. I don't know. But Orange County is where he crashed at Orange County, or had the air incident at Orange County Airport. So I always run into people who have waited tables on him or know him or whatever, So he hangs out down here every so often.
Nice. So then you guys can be buds and you can ask him what he thinks. You know what
No,
I'd
but I
be
told you,
interested.
did I tell you about my stalker friend who stalked him and became his friend,
We
but then
talked about
told
that.
me, he
Yeah.
told me you can never tell him that I'm actually just a stalker.
Yes. Yeah. You did tell me about that. So we'll yeah
That's pretty funny.
we'll keep his name out of the news. It would be interesting, and maybe we can ask our subscribers is how they would cast the characters, really from any
Right.
actor, living or dead, right? So maybe if they want to bring back Ted Danson in his prime to play one of the characters, by all means, right?
Right. Yeah. I would say for the bounty hunter, I would say Anthony Hopkins when he was younger,
Mhm.
or there's another guy, and I always forget his name, but he's pretty awesome. But more of sort of like maybe even a Richard Burton type.
Right.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Mhm.
For Captain Keel,
Mhm.
is Ashton Kutcher too charming? Does he have to
Possibly,
be?
maybe too young. I don't know.
But he's not young.
Yeah, he's
You
not that
think of
young. Yeah,
he's not young
yeah.
anymore.
No, he was. He was back when that '70s show was on. That was a long time ago.
Yeah, but he's aged. I saw him dancing for nickels in front of the 7-Eleven. He's
Okay.
put on a few pounds. No, uh, like Bruce Willis could be another choice for the bounty hunter. That
Oh
could be
yeah,
cool.
he'd be a good.
Yeah,
Yeah, Bruce Willis would do
yeah.
really
But
good.
Bruce Willis is great in everything, pretty much.
What about Denzel Washington?
Denzel Washington, I would easily go for. Like if the weird, and then he's like, I want to do this. I'm like, you're in.
Right. Yeah. No problem.
I wouldn't care. I'd be like, you're in.
Right. How
And
about?
I know someone that knows him too. And I know someone that knows him. And then I one time my AC guy came over
Mhm.
and he's like, oh, you're an actor. I'm like, yeah. And he goes like, I fixed Denzel Washington's air conditioning. And I said, oh, how was that? And he says like, greatest guy in the world. He buys you pizza and sits down and eats with you. And that was like really important. I thought, wow, that's cool. But then I've heard other stories, and like this person I know, they're just like, he is the coolest, nicest person you've ever met. So
Mhm.
I would actually cast Denzel Washington based on the fact that he eats pizza with air conditioning repairmen.
Mhm.
But going back to Captain Keel, it's obviously got to be somebody who's younger and kind of got some mojo going on.
Mhm.
Is a little wacky. I didn't like the French guy for Rogue One. I thought that was an odd choice.
The guy that played Poe Dameron,
Yeah, no, is that him for Rogue One?
the pilot.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah.
is it?
I can't
Are
think
you
of his
sure
name.
that's not?
Poe
No, I
Dameron.
think you're thinking of Force Awakens.
Oh, I am thinking of Force Awakens. Yeah, yeah, you're right. I was
They're
going too
both
far back.
similar though. They're both like,
Yeah, I know who you
but they're
mean though.
20 years apart, but they're both the same.
Right. But yes, I know exactly who you're talking about. Yeah, yeah. No, I don't think Captain Keel speaks French. He's an American. He's an
Right.
American.
He is an American in space. Um, gosh, hard to say. Gary Busey in his prime.
Oh man, I think he's too crazy. But Mel Gibson in his prime could do it.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I totally or Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah, Robert Downey Jr. could do it. I kind of like Mel Gibson in his prime because he had really good comedic timing,
Right.
and there's a little
Okay.
bit of that with Captain Keel.
Right. So you could get like, yeah. Okay. So definitely. Okay. So Mel Gibson in his prime.
Yeah, and then Ravi's a tough one because Indian actors really aren't super represented.
There's just the one guy.
It's like Ben Kingsley plays them all.
Ben Kingsley. No, there's the one guy. There's Aziz Ansari.
Yeah, I can't see him. I think Ravi's got too much heart and too much of a moral compass.
Yeah. I actually watch Bollywood films with this one guy who works the security desk at where my wife works.
Mm-hmm.
And so late at night, because she's an opera singer, I'll go in and we'll watch Bollywood films.
Mm-hmm.
There's actually there's actually a lot of great Indian actors who would love to work and are good in LA. So casting an Indian guy is actually no problem.
Nice.
What Hollywood would want to do is they would initially like, hey, why don't we get Scarlett Johansson to play the Indian guy?
Right.
And then everybody would call it cultural appropriation. It would
Right.
be some kind of scenario like that. Like, hey, Nathan Fillion's going to play the Indian guy. And then they would think that's like a really great idea until like everybody called them racist. And then they would have to issue apologies and,
Right.
write checks to the Indian Actors Fund and all this kind of stuff. And that's like when you finally decide to stop playing the game of society, you just sit back and watch these shenanigans and you don't get upset anymore. You're like, that's pretty funny, actually.
Yeah, it is pretty funny. They ran the numbers and they're like, well, we can gross this much more with Nathan Fillion in this
Right.
movie.
As an Indian guy.
So the only place we have him, because we've got our keel, is as the Indian guy. So let's do it.
Yeah.
And probably not sorry, because they're probably right.
Right. Yeah. And so for the tough but slightly sexy female lieutenant.
Oh yeah, that's a good one, huh?
Yeah. I see her as kind of like that dislikable girl that used to be in all the movies.
Selma Hayek?
No, shut your mouth. Selma Hayek was always likable. No, she was in The Devil Wears Prada and stuff like that.
Oh, Glenn Close. I know who you're talking about. Is it Anne Hathaway? Is she in it?
Yeah, that seems like it, right?
Yeah, probably. Do you think Reese Witherspoon could still do it? Now that she's older, she's too cute, too nice.
She's a little. You're looking like, so she's a female military lieutenant. You're looking at like 23 or 24.
Probably,
but you can have Reese Witherspoon in her prime.
Sure.
But she's a blonde and
too cute.
I think
too bubbly.
Yeah, I think military lieutenants are always going to be brunettes who are trying to prove themselves.
Possibly dark redheads.
Dark redhead indicates crazy.
Yeah, well, maybe she is.
Yeah, maybe she's crazy.
Right, and then the princess, you can put Scarlett Johansson in her role because it's just a little bit of makeup and give her the right skin color and the right tendrils on her head and stuff, and you're fine.
Tendrils, exactly, and she loves those kind of roles.
Totally, she likes to play the ghost in the shell.
Yeah, and I would just like. The Prisma chick is just any little girl that's like, Natalie Portman would have been great in her prime. The little girl in True Grit,
Well, it gives you that opportunity.
Act up a storm.
That opportunity on the title cards to say, and introducing.
Yeah.
Which is always like a big deal.
And introducing Mickey. And introducing Mickey. See, if I was like a 75-year-old star, that would be like, once I hit 75, I'd be like, and every time I'm in something, you got to put and introducing.
Introducing Nick Cole as Grampy Smith.
And introducing George Clooney. Okay.
Getting old enough too. All right. Yeah. We've got a cast. We just need Disney to notice, sue us, and then decide, actually, we should buy the rights to this.
Right. We'll need that big you're definitely the Jimmy Stewart who can stand up in court. And somehow George Lucas is going to need to show up, which is not as unusual as you think it is. Mm-hmm. Because my wife is Portuguese and George Lucas is Portuguese.
Right. They know each other.
And they're both from the same town. There's a chance. There's like a 1% chance.
Like there's going to be a relative that can harangue him.
Not a relative. I mean, all Portuguese are related, and all Portuguese play this game. Who's Portuguese? Mm-hmm. Like they always go, that person over there, and they'll talk about this and the names, and you don't always recognize Portuguese names as Portuguese because they can sound Spanish, and sometimes they can, like Larry Correa is Portuguese.
He looks Portuguese.
And yeah, I mean, he's tall for a Portuguese, but yeah, he looks Portuguese.
He's got those Portuguese eyes.
He's got the Portuguese eyes, right? So Lucas is Portuguese, but you would say Lucas. And my wife is Portuguese. So there's like a 1% roll 2 percentile dice chance and roll 00.
Right.
He could be there for your Jimmy Stewart speech.
It's good. My hard part will be not just train wrecking it by thinking of like a really funny joke that completely changes the mood.
Changes the mood. Like a really racist joke.
Well, why did you say that? I thought the Italians were due. I don't know.
Hey, come on. We all hate Hungarians. Except for Judge Jovan Milosevic.
Right. Exactly. Just banging the gavel.
George Lucas just stands and turns and walks out, shaking his head. And all you hear is me dying laughing.
And then jump cut to us both sitting in jail, and you're still laughing.
It was worth every second. I don't know why. I've just gotten that way in my career. I enjoy breaking things. It's been fun.
Hey, you got to do something with your time.
Yeah, exactly. Don't hold on too tight. That's what I would say to everybody. Don't hold on too tight.
And with those words of wisdom, we've held on to our hour, and it's up.
It's up.
It's up.
Thank you guys for hanging out with us. I'm sorry if we were tangential or offensive, but you've actually, Jason and I talk like this several times a week, not several times, but
every
like
day.
at least once.
Every day we both take our phones. We take the phone and the cord stretches, and we sit in the closet and just talk until our wives bang on the door. And it's like, other people use this phone too.
I'm wearing the cheerleader outfit.
Okay, gotta go.
But we just wanted to invite you into our conversations, and I thank you for hanging out with us and having a good time. And we are crafting something interesting and fun for you, and I'm so glad that you're a part of it.
Absolutely. All right. Well, you'll see us in your inboxes before long. We've also got something planned. We're not quite ready to talk about it on the show, but we're going to try some viewing parties that kind of link up Galaxy's Edge. So we'll tell you more about that in the coming week. The best way to find out what we're doing, really, if you're a subscriber, is to join our special little Facebook page. A lot of you don't. A lot of people aren't in it, even though they're subscribers, and so you're missing some fun fellowship and opportunities to talk with other subscribers.
Truly.
We post
jokes. We post funny memes.
Yeah, that's basically it. Funny memes.
Funny memes.
All right, signing off. Bye, everybody.